Hello and a very good morning to all our viewers watching NewsX. I'm Kriti Mehta. Let's start with the big news that broke out last night in a major blow to former US President Donald Trump. The United States Supreme Court has struck down his sweeping reciprocal tariffs, ruling that the president overstepped his constitutional authority by imposing import duties under emergency powers. In a 6-3 decision, the court invalidated tariffs introduced after Trump's so-called Liberation Day in April 2025, when the US slapped a 10% baseline tariff on imports from nearly every trading partner, with even higher duties on select countries. Let's break this down. At the heart of the case was Trump's use of the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA, a law designed to give presidents wide authority during national emergencies. Trump argued that chronic trade deficits and unfair trade practices constituted an emergency serious enough to justify sweeping tariffs without congressional approval. The Supreme Court disagreed, writing for the majority. Chief Justice John Roberts anchored the ruling firmly in the US Constitution, which explicitly assigns the power to levy taxes and tariffs to Congress, not the president. Roberts noted that while IEEPA grants several emergency powers, it never mentions tariffs or import duties. The government thus concedes, as it must, that the president enjoys no inherent authority to impose tariffs during peacetime. Roberts wrote, adding that the United States is not at war with every nation in the world. The court ruled that the phrase regulate importation under IEEPA cannot be stretched to mean taxing imports, especially when tariffs have enormous economic and political consequences. This, the court said, triggered what is known as the major questions doctrine, meaning any such transformative power must be clearly and explicitly authorized by the Congress. In this case, it was not. Importantly, the ruling does not affect sector-specific tariffs imposed under other laws, including duties on steel, aluminium, and certain strategic products, but it does dismantle the legal foundation of Trump's global reciprocal tariff regime. Three conservative judges, Samuel Alito, Clarence Thomas, and Brett Kavanaugh, dissented, warning that the decision could destabilize trade deals and create fiscal chaos. So how has Donald Trump responded? Trump reacted swiftly and angrily. Within hours of the ruling, he announced that he would sign executive orders to reimpose tariffs using alternative trade laws. He said his administration would invoke Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974 to impose a global 10% tariff and Section 301 to launch investigations into what he called unfair trade practices. Trump insisted that while the Supreme Court had blocked one route, he still had many others. However, these alternatives come with significant limits. Section 122 tariffs can last only 150 days unless Congress approves an extension, and Section 301 investigations are slower, more procedural, and vulnerable to legal challenges. That brings us to a crucial question: will countries and companies get refunds? Justice Kavanaugh warned that returning billions of dollars would be a mess for the US Treasury. Any refunds will now depend on separate legal proceedings, meaning importers, not governments, would have to sue for repayments. That process could take years and may not result in full recovery. Listen in to what Trump had to say when asked whether India-US trade deal still stands.
sometime soon. Will that stand now? And on the decision, nothing changes.
No, nothing changes. They'll be paying tariffs, and we will not be paying tariffs. Our deal with India is they pay tariffs. This is a reversal from what it used to be, as you know. India, and I think Prime Minister Modi is a great gentleman, a great man, actually, but he was much smarter than the people that he was against in terms of the United States. He was ripping us off in India. So we made a deal with India, and it's a fair deal now, and we are not paying tariffs to them, and they are paying tariffs. We did a little flip.
All right, viewers, those are the latest details coming in as far as Trump's global tariffs are concerned. They are now declared illegal as per the US Supreme Court. That's a major decision that came in last night, and we bring you all those details. Trump, in fact, says he will reimpose these tariffs. Let's take that question to my colleague Brian Thomas, who's there with us. Brian, a major decision by the US Supreme Court, but Trump is saying he's going to reimpose the tariffs. How really can he do that?
Very importantly, US President Donald Trump has sharply criticized the Supreme Court after it struck down his sweeping global tariffs, calling the verdict deeply disappointing and saying that he was ashamed of certain members of the court for lacking the courage to act in America's interest. Not only that, it's very important to note the fact that Trump also alleged that the court had been influenced by foreign interests and warned that alternative tariff powers would now be deployed to protect US industries. Clearly itself, that has been there, that even the White House official has also been confirmed that a 10% duty will be applying to all trading partners itself. And now Trump has also announced a fresh 10% global tariffs on imports, invoking Section 122 of the Trade Act of the 1947, just hours after the Supreme Court struck down his earlier tariff regime. Now, he also said that he would even sign an executive order, like you mentioned, yes, to impose the surcharge effective immediately, and even over and above normal tariffs already being charged itself. And even Section 122 authorizes even the US president to impose temporary import searches or quotas for up to 150 days to address serious balance of payments deficit or even rapid dollar depreciation. And analysts have also been saying that the move allows Trump to maintain the protectionist trade measures while bypassing the legal limits highlighted by the court. Yes.
All right, Thomas, what are the other reactions that are coming in? How are different countries or importers reacting now to the Supreme Court of the United States judgment?
Well, if we talk about different countries now, if we talk about Vice President, Vice President J.D. Vance has criticized the Supreme Court decision striking down the Trump's tariff. European Union also stressed, officials rather, they have said that they are reviewing the implications of the new 10% US global tariffs that is around announced under the Section 122, with early signals also suggesting concern over renewed protectionist pressure on transatlantic trade. And diplomatic sources also say that Brussels may even seek consultation with Washington, even evaluate possible WTO consistent response if the temporary tariff into longer term duties. Yes.
Brian, do continue to stay on with me. Viewers, NewsX has now accessed a copy of the official judgment by the US Supreme Court. Let's take a look at that. My colleague Rumi is joining us from the newsroom to tell you more details.
Yes, well, we have the Supreme Court of the United States' judgment right here in front of our screens. The syllabus here reads learning resources including et al. Versus Trump, President of the United States et al. The question presented is whether the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or the IEEPA, authorizes the President to impose tariffs, sees 91 Stat 1626, shortly after taking office. President Trump sought to address two foreign threats, number one being the influx of illegal drugs from Canada, Mexico, and China. As per Presidential Proclamation number 10886, 90 Fed registered under 8327, Executive Order number 14193, 90. The other one being large and persistent trade deficits, as also cited in the Supreme Court judgment. The judgment also reads that the precedent determined that the drug influx had created a public health crisis and that the trade deficits had led to the hollowing out of the American manufacturing base and undermined critical supply chains. The president declared a national emergency as to both threats, deeming them unusual and extraordinary, and invoked his authority under IEEPA to respond. He imposed tariffs to deal with each threat. As to the drug trafficking tariffs, the president imposed a 25% duty on most Canadian and Mexican imports and a 10% duty on most Chinese imports. At 9114, 9118, 9122 and 9123, as to the trade deficit or the reciprocal tariffs, the president imposed a duty on all imports from all trading partners of the United States at least 10%, with dozens of nations facing higher rates. Since imposing these sets of tariffs, the president has issued several increases, reductions and other modifications. However, now the Supreme Court has held that the IEEPA does not authorize the president to impose tariffs. The judgment in number 24 by 1287 is vacated and the case is remanded with instructions to dismiss for lack of jurisdiction, and the judgment in number 25 by 1250 is affirmed. The Supreme Court has also stated that the Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, and the framers recognized in the unique importance of this taxing power, a power which very clearly includes the power to impose tariffs, and they gave Congress alone access to the pockets of the people. So they've also stated that the government thus concedes that the president enjoys no inherent authority to impose tariffs during peacetime. It instead relies exclusively on IEEPA to defend the challenged tariffs. Over to you, Kriti.